All right. So, Chris, something that came to mind recently is what is one of your favorite greatest hits albums that's out there?
One of my favorite greatest hits albums. You see, I'm buying time by repeating the question.
Yeah.
again.
Yeah. You did that
So,
last episode too. You did.
Yeah, you know what, Mike? It has been a long time since I've heard of greatest hits, but I do like a good compilation out there on Spotify of different '90s hits.
Ooh.
So maybe not an album these days. I think we're getting with the times here. We're rolling with what's available out
I
there
didn't
on
mean a real
Spotify and
record,
other.
but okay. Spotify, like 90s.
Yeah, I love putting on a compilation. Being reminded of certain songs and such. So yeah,
Like
I listen to some
jazz.
country hits. Well, the most recent was, how I like to float in the pool. Well, I like
Yep.
to have some 80s and 90s country to float to, if you can imagine that. And
So
it just,
this girl on fire mixed in with some 80s and 90s country.
this the song list is on fire at that point.
Oh man. Okay, greatest hits.
Yeah, what about you?
I like a good compilation, kind of like you remember the Now CDs that came out and now they're on like Now 75 basically, or Now
You tell me more
105.
about it. Yeah.
You don't know what I'm talking about? The compilation CDs?
I want to hear more about
They came across
this.
on the commercial and it was like, check out the Now. They're a big compilation. There it is. There it is.
Yeah.
Good jock jams, a good Beatles greatest hits.
Stadium rock.
Stadium rock anthems. Yes. And let's see, Eagles, Beatles, all the other old
70s hits.
Creed greatest hits. Nothing wrong with a Creed greatest hits album.
Yeah, there you go.
There's lots of good. Lots of good greatest hits. Speaking of greatest hits, I brought that up because you had an interesting segue that you talked before we recorded that you wanted to bring up today. What was that again?
Yeah. So just thinking about, we're 15 episodes in. And so I like to think about the beginning. It's been a little while. It's been several months now. And at the beginning, we talked about how, primarily this is a podcast that was geared toward men. And, you'd mentioned, hey, Chris, let's keep an open mind there. Let's not cast anybody out of the door here. Let's make sure that we're keeping that door open for anybody who would like to, participate by listening. And yeah, I think as we've gone 15 episodes in, that it's not just men who are listening. So kudos to you, Mike. You saw the vision way before I did. And we definitely want to be a podcast that can help and encourage.
The ladies are welcome. So breaking news, co-host
these girls
Chris,
are on fire. They are.
Co-host Chris is making an announcement that yes, while we are hopefully going to mutually encourage one another and men, we know there's obviously a place for women, and we're all not quite there. And even courtesy that we had our daughters on recently,
absolutely,
who are going to be great young women in their future, and all are welcome. So this girl's on fire, this guy's on fire.
I didn't mean to cause all that division, Mike. So
lots of drama. But you know what? It's okay. 15 episodes in. So can you believe we're actually 15 episodes in? Does that like, how do you feel about that?
It's hard to believe, but I'm glad to be 15 episodes in, and I'm glad that we're doing this together, and we're enjoying this, and that other people are listening and also getting some enjoyment out of it, and also we hope that they're taking some good wisdom nuggets from this as well. And so that's kind of what we're doing this week, right? We're wanting to lay out some of the things that we feel have stood out over the past 15 episodes, and that people can engage with again, whether or not they're listening to the podcast yet, or if they have been listening to the podcast, then maybe some of these things will be a reminder, and maybe they'll like to revisit some of those episodes, or if they want to share some of those things from those episodes with others, and here's a chance to kind of hear them again.
Yeah. I've been asked, I don't know if you've gotten this. I've been asked recently, why did you guys even do the podcast? And it's, that's a great question, and I don't even know if we have the full answer to that outside of, we believe it was obedience. I mean, at least I'll answer for me, but, believe it was obedience to get it going at least. And we feel like there was something there, and it's fun, and there seems to be joy, and there seems to be something that the Lord's doing through both of us and people we talk with. And then, like you just said, there's wisdom that's come out in a way that we can look back, whether we call it greatest hits or looking back, and maybe it's every 15 episodes or maybe not, but we can have a whole episode that has a lot of wisdom that we feel like stood out. And that's kind of what we wanted to play for you today was essentially these various clips from our past episodes and what we believe the Lord had stand out for everyone and wanted to give you a chance to kind of catch up and listen to that and glean on some of that wisdom that we've been fortunate to glean from and just kind of go from there.
Certainly, we've had a few guests that have joined us as well too, and we're just thankful for what they've had to share on the episodes that they were a part of, and of course, we want to make sure that some of the things that they had to share get a little bit more spotlight too, because we're thankful for what God has been doing in their life, and also their willingness to come on and do that. And that's what we hope for later episodes too. We're definitely wanting to bring more interviews of folks who have impacted us or that are impacting others through their relationship with Christ. And so that's just going to be part of the plan going forward, and hopefully some more things that we can share from them as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So give this a listen and let us know what you think. And then we'll come back at the end of these clips and talk a little bit more about Not Quite There.
And again, sorry for all that drama. I'm not quite there.
Yeah, you're not.
Yes!
He basically said, if you're coming in here trying to figure out why you're having the anxiety, which is what everyone does, he just said you're asking the wrong question, which kind of piqued my interest because my number one goal for 2 years was why is this happening? So I can
find out the reason why.
Yes. So I was like, okay, that's interesting. So what do you mean? And he said, well, if you think about a 90-year-old person breaking their hip, we don't really, that all makes sense to us. We don't question that. We have sinful bodies. They're going to kind of break as we get older. That's what happens. But he said, but when a 20-year-old's brain is broken and there's issues with that, we tend to go like, ooh, that's interesting. Like, what's wrong with that person kind of a thing. But biblically, there's no separation of our bodies or our minds. They're both broken.
No man is an island, not in God's economy. Surround yourself with men who are looking to grow in their Christ-like faith, in their spiritual maturity, in their walk, that are also wanting to engage in community. Make sure you're part of that. Don't walk alone. A lone wolf does not stand very long on their own. With the action movies and the things that we see, it's the guy on his own, and that's the thing that looks cool, and they think they just got it all figured out. And that's been marketed to us. It's not that way. We need each other. We do. We need other men around us. We need guys who are willing to be honest with us, who are also willing to take some honesty back.
Yep.
It's what we love about sports, really, whenever we play on teams, too, is that's the reality playing out. We're having to help each other out, or else
you're picking each other up,
or else the team fails and it suffers, right?
Christopher Walken, everyone, has come into the space.
Hello, gentlemen. I hear that you're talking about anxiety, and I really think people out there need to understand. Stop worrying.
Oh, no,
life is too short.
Christopher, I think that's the wrong take.
As my friend Bobby McFerrin said in his song, "Don't worry, be happy."
Oh dear.
You got to get it together.
Okay, all right. That's Christopher Walken, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for stopping by, Chris. If you can see him on the way out, just go ahead and shut the door behind him. That is a bad example of anxiety, everyone. So don't do what Christopher Walken does. The heart of man plans his ways, as Scripture says, but the Lord establishes his steps. Which I think that's two things. One, it means you have to get up from the couch. You have to take a step. Because we often will sit there and go, God, show me the way. And we're like, he's never telling me anything. And it's like, okay, if he says, I'll establish your steps, it clearly means
make a step.
Yeah, you got to get up. You have to take a step, like get going. And if you're like, I don't know where to go, start walking.
Yeah.
You'll establish your steps. Not necessarily a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan. He could give us a big vision for that. That's fair. But I think more often than not, it's in the daily, minuscule steps. That's also really encouraging to me
because I can kind of step back and take a deep breath and just be like, okay, the next couple steps. I know when I start getting off track, it is, if I had to be gut level honest, which, I mean, I want to be vulnerable here. Feels really,
I want to let you.
Well, it feels weird to say
Go
it,
ahead.
but it's because I want to do what I want, when I want, how I want. So I want to eat what I want, when I want, how I want it, whatever time of day, even the middle of the night. Or I'm sure there's some flesh side of me that goes, I deserve it, or I've worked hard. This tastes good. Why should I have to limit myself?
Right.
You know, why there are limitations as I get older? There's things I can't eat like I could eat maybe 20 years ago.
Why do I need a bowl, and why not just the carton of ice cream?
So, yeah. Or like a strip of bacon versus maybe a bowl of bacon. Yeah. So whatever. Well, so it has to come down to my motivation. It's got to be that. It's got to be I frankly just want to do what I want to do.
We've seen, unfortunately, so many people on platforms fall. I mean, geez, we just kind of had another one like this last week, and it's just like it all is like, is everything just a facade?
Yeah.
And so who is the person that I know and I see him all the time, and that I can also ask questions and be like, what do you mean by that? What did you do in this situation? And I can trust you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like,
I
think people are starving for that now.
Yeah. To know and trust.
Right.
Like to go to know and
trust and be able to see, hear, I mean, everything that, a good relationship has, right? There's empathy for others when they make mistakes. And I think that was one of the lessons too that God wanted me to learn, was that when people make a mistake and you know that they didn't mean to, then of course I can relate.
Yeah.
And so
that's a good word.
A bit more patience in that. And
that's probably a really good word to end on is, can we increase in our empathy? Obviously when we make a mistake, but really when others around us make a mistake. Because it is funny how quickly we almost get bothered or aggravated. Like we talked about customer service, and while some of that has gone down, the bar has gone down on some of that lately. Some of these people they're just making mistakes. It sounded like I got choked up there for a second, but I promise I didn't. I'm not crying. They're making mistakes. Showing that grace and empathy to someone, because we're not perfect, and Jesus is perfect on our behalf. We can clearly extend grace when people make mistakes. And like you said, maybe be one of those people who can just jump right in and help someone.
Songs better be entrenched with great theology and doctrine, because people are going to take them out of their services on a Sunday and sing them throughout the week. That's what they're designed to do, right? And so if they're not rich in great theology and doctrine, then I failed my church as a worship pastor to give them something to chew on for the week. And so it's being mindful of that as a worship pastor, being mindful of that every single Sunday you stand on a platform, that the songs that you're leading, that 4 or 5 song set, is in fact 4 or 5 mini sermons that you're imparting that day. And so you're pastoring your people with those songs.
And of course, there's grace. If you wait and you didn't do it, or you're thinking about past situations and you didn't do it, that's okay. Start now. Would you pray and be willing? Reach out to them right now. Pause this podcast. Call them. Text them. Do whatever. Just reach out right now and speak life to whoever it is the Lord's prompting you to do that with.
That gets pretty exciting, right? Just to think about what that can do for somebody. Too often we hear about hurt people, right?
Yeah.
On the flip side of that, encourage people can encourage people. And so doing that, you never know what you're helping to release in that other person to replicate that, to encourage others in their life. Ask your friend, how are you doing? How is conversation between you and your kids? Is it there? And bring some of this out into the open, and be able to also volunteer how things are going for you, and maybe take that wild step of committing to pray for each other.
That's a good word, because I think something we're finding as a theme, as I'm like saying this out loud, is how many guys struggle with the same things, and how many guys also don't talk to each other about it. Yeah. But then once you do, you go, oh, okay, cool. It's not just me. Like you're encouraged, because we can mutually spur each other on to love and good works. And it's so funny because it seems so elementary, like, of course we should do that, but we just don't do that.
You need to be connected into a local church.
Yeah.
I actually think that's a big issue, is like we got a lot of people that are just on the peripherals, but you're not actually connected into a local body.
Mm-hmm.
So start there, get connected into a local church. And then from there, ask a guy to meet up with you, like we've talked about, and let's talk about the word from there.
Mm-hmm.
And then just open it up. To me, it's never a bad idea to just start in Genesis and just read. Just read. Start in Genesis and then keep on going from there. And absolutely, it's going to get a little confusing there for a little bit, and that's fine.
That's okay.
Keep reading.
Power
through, because it actually will start to almost unfold a bit and make a little bit more sense.
There's a lot of Christian shows and movies that could be talking about the Bible and that can honor God. Let's just say that as a preface. Can I just throw that out there?
You just did, yeah.
But thank you. But the quality of the shows or the scripts or the acting are terrible. Like terrible. The worst. Like, I don't even understand. No! It's so, they've been really bad. Let's just put it that way. They've been so bad that before I was a believer, I remember watching some of them, and I actually thought that's kind of what Christianity was, and it was really cheesy. The Chosen is by no means perfect, but we are making strides. I really do think quality of actual acting, performance, script, it's really, really good. I would say to anyone, it's worth your time to give it a few episodes. I would give this one a shot. This is different.
The most successful people that I've seen, not just following after the Lord, but also like just in general, in the coaching world, in the business world, it's like they're like experts in this one thing, and they just repeatedly do that thing over and over and over again, and then they just take off.
Yeah.
But I think we kind of sometimes in today's world, because everything's important, everything is breaking news, everything is the most that you have to do this, you know.
Shiny object.
We just get chasing, and the next thing you know, it's like, have I done anything? I've just been spinning around.
Yeah.
And I don't even know if I've grown at all, because I'm just super familiar with like 40 different things.
Yeah. Like a quantity over quality kind of a thing. Yeah. There's basically no quality at the end of the day.
Right.
Yeah. Wow. Let's just say you played your heart out at a game and you're laying it out on the field. There's something really satisfying, even though, you might practically be exhausted, but it's like I really worked hard and strived, to love my wife well, to serve my kids, to drive home after a 12-hour day and prepare yourself for what some people call as a second shift mentality. Like, I'm going in to just give my all to my family.
Right.
And you might go to bed last, or your head finally hits the pillow and there's something where you're like, I'm going to sleep really good.
Yeah, your sleep ought to be really good.
Yeah. Right. And then versus what could be, I'm ignoring all my responsibilities. I'm eating the puffy Cheetos or playing the video games. I'm not striving to do anything with work.
Yeah.
I don't think that person's sleeping good.
I've been so encouraged over the last 4 years or so to see the return of the church to just singing vertical songs in church. What I mean by vertical, of just like the holy, holy, holy moment songs of just like the how great is our God's, the very, our heart to God's heart, and not singing so much about woe is me and I'm in the pit. And we need those songs. I think there's a healthy balance in that, so to see songs being written coming back to this kind of more vertical of we lift Jesus high, and sing songs being birthed out of that, and worship leaders in churches want to lead those kind of songs, just really encourages my worship leader heart, because those songs will win always.
This is for all of us today still. Where do we truly find our value?
Yeah. Imagine having that that identity settled.
Oh man,
at 20, to where that God loves you. That anybody else's opinion is just opinion, and that you then couple that with having friends that
do really care for you, that do want to see the best for
That's
you.
huge. I would have gotten through so many. I didn't have that, and not blaming anyone,
Sure.
but that would have made a massive difference, because you move through, for all the things you just spoke to earlier, all those other things are coming at you. This life is being formed. You move through that with, I don't know, a level of confidence or clarity that you just don't have otherwise. Like,
Right.
you have those friends to help you move forward. And I guess you kind of have your North Star of where your values found in Jesus to keep, is your compass to keep going.
I think confessing that, I think, here with you and with all of our friends out there, saying that this is a real problem. This is, something that has hampered me for much too long.
Yeah.
And why stay there? And why not move forward? And why not have that accountability there to fall back on?
Yeah.
To help during those times.
Yeah.
So that, I think, is a healthy way to approach it. If there is an issue, speak out about it, let somebody know, get some guidance, go to a good friend, and then get on a plan.
Being honest with God himself. Like, he already knows what we're thinking. He knows exactly what you're struggling with. He knows you and I more than we know ourselves. Sometimes we hold back, like, well, I don't want to say all that to God, and fill in whatever the reason is. But he knows. So it's so much more freeing by just going, okay, God, I don't want to be patient. Like, maybe your prayer is like, God, you're frustrating me with this patience thing, and I don't want to be patient. But you're at least saying something and showing some honest feelings with that. When we are more honest in our prayers with the Lord himself, I think it helps lead us then to be more honest with others. And then there's confession that takes place. And the Bible says there's healing with confession. And what do you know? We probably take a deep breath and we grow a little bit more in our patience.
What is the main goal here? What's the thing to be learned? What's the thing that God is trying to show me? And that tends to take a bit of the pressure off of you, I would say.
I think so. I think when you finally let it go, I just envision opening your hands. I think the process of opening your hands is really difficult. I think by the time they're open, like they're flat out open.
Mike is opening his hands right now.
I am opening my hands for the listener. Thank you, listener. I think when you open your hands, the pressure does actually go off. I think that's when you know you've given over to the Lord, honestly. The pressure releases and you're like, okay. If we're not developing our relationship with Jesus, I don't know how to do what you just said. I don't know how to do this. Because what if someone asked me to go to Honduras, as an example, go on a mission trip? Unless I know the Lord is leading me that direction, man, I don't think I'm going to say yes to anything that's uncomfortable. Sure. Like, what would my motivation be in my flesh to say yes to the uncomfortable things? I think in my spirit and with the Holy Spirit leading me, I would say yes more often. But there's no way I can do that without spending time with Jesus, right?
Right.
You're just getting the opinions of others, or it's your own flesh leading the way. There's no way we're going to step into the uncomfortable on the norm, I think, without Jesus leading the way. The achiever side of me doesn't like hearing that. But I think that's because that achiever side is, I'm not saying that's my godly side coming out of me. I think that's my sinful, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean I need help or I'm dependent? Because that's a whole nother thing we don't like to hear. But then if you look at Jesus, I mean, we have to have him. Like, we have to need him just because we can't do it.
And I think that's the point too, that if we're going back in the time machine and we're telling our 20-year-old self anything other than, some derivative of becoming more like Christ, then we're missing it.
So that's just kind of a look over the past 15 episodes. Of course, there's so much more that was shared. If you go back and give those a listen, that's just like a snippet of what we could pull from those episodes. And some of you know this, some of you may not know this. Obviously, you're listening to this on a podcast. We're also available on YouTube, and all these clips by themselves are on YouTube. And then, of course, Facebook, Insta, LinkedIn, our website, nqtshow.com. You can leave us a voicemail on there as well. We'd love to like hear from you. Basically, it's like you're giving us a call. We might play that on the podcast or answer your questions on there too. But leaving a review and a rating is actually a really big deal. And we want it to be a big deal because we kind of want this to get out to more and more people, just because we think everyone can relate with not being quite there, you know?
Certainly. And that's the heart behind it, is that we just want it to reach as many people as possible who need a dose of encouragement to take that next step in obedience. And so whether you are listening from Chicago or Dripping Springs or Switzerland or Buffalo, wherever you might be listening to, we just want to say thank you. Thank you for going along for the ride for the past 15 episodes. And here's to 15 more. And we would just love to see your support by liking and following and all those things that you can do on social media to say that that this is worth your time, because we certainly think you are.
For men and for ladies.
Yes.
Yes.
Thanks so much for joining us. Please consider rating and reviewing our podcast and hitting subscribe on whichever platform you prefer. Remember to keep moving forward, because we're not quite there.